Ho, 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 and Merry Christmas from Voyager, Please, A Hateful Voyage Through the Delta Quadrant, your very favorite Voyager episode review podcast. And if it's not, fuck you. Go listen to something else. My name is Joseph.
Hey, I'm Peter.
I don't know. I guess I'm in a fighty mood, Peter, because I don't think you can watch the episode we watched and not, feel like a need to stab somebody and, defend your prison hovel.
And take a shower. This was a dirty episode. I want to say right now, I nominate this episode title to be the Prison Shank Olympics.
See, I like the base of that. I think we just need to refine it. You know, it's like the core is good there. I think we need to find the right. Maybe as we do the episode, we'll hit on the right phrasing of that. But
I've never seen so many people get stabbed in a Star Trek environment ever. Yeah.
Well, let's just go for it, dude. What did we watch?
We watched season 3, episode 3. Hold on, before we jump into this, I want to point out, I went to the one Christmas party I got to go to this year last night, and I don't know what it is, man, but I get a couple drinks in me and just, maybe it's the podcast's influence in my life or whatever, but the Star Trek conversations I get roped into with complete strangers, and I'm not initiating, man. Some girl made a comment about stealing a Star Trek Enterprise ornament off the tree, and somehow it ends up hearing about her action figure collection that's in her ex-boyfriend's house, and then the podcast comes out. I don't know how many of these people I talk to randomly drunk, but if you're out there and listening, thank you.
I don't know what it is that you managed to attract people into your life that casually, in conversations you did not anticipate, you're having these deep nerd cuts where it's not actually all that weird for you to bring up that you have a Star Trek podcast. That's the real stunner from all of these stories. It's that by the time you're bringing up that you're doing the podcast, it's a natural part of the conversation. I don't have these moments in my life, Peter. I don't.
It's because you hang out with professionals and I hang out with nerds, and I think it's just a foregone conclusion.
Please. I go play Magic the Gathering on weekends. Even they look at me like I've got 3 heads. They look down upon me, Peter.
Well, look, you need to take a lesson out of this episode, and when someone looks down on you, just blast them with that shank right in the ribs.
Just knife them.
All right, man. Season 3, episode 3, The Chute.
So this episode opens, it gets right to the point, because we come across, I guess, some unused sets from Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like this dirt floor, industrial hellscape interior kind of set. And everyone in the room looks like an extra from the Warriors, but after they've not had a shower for 3 weeks. They've got the stereotypical post-apocalyptic kind of rags on them. Got a couple of different looking species in there. Mostly one kind of pseudo Klingon headridge action going on.
And that's exactly my thought on this was, you get your first scene of Kim getting dumped down a chute and just dudes surrounding him. And it just looks straight up like a Klingon prison. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah, it looks like Rua Pente. Except, like the tropical version. Like it's hot in there. And like you said, Harry Kim gets sent down the chute and lands in the middle of all of these prisoners. And immediately he gets gang jumped into the prison. They pick him up and they start tossing him around and punching him in the face. Toss him to another guy, gets punched in the groin, and he gets thrown to a familiar face, Tom Paris.
Now, when you're saying familiar, you mean familiar to Harry Kim, or a face that's familiar around prisons?
Oh, we'll get to the fact that Tom Paris knows how to jail. This man knows how to jail well. By the way, this episode's awesome. Go watch it. Let's get that the fuck out of the way. I loved it, and you should go watch it if you've never seen it. I would say it's uniquely one of the more psychologically damaging episodes of Star Trek you'll ever see.
It was a refreshing departure from your normal 90s Trek formula.
Oh, hell yes.
This whole scene of Harry Kim getting passed around to various ass beatings, I have a feeling that if this was an HBO show, that it would have been, I don't know. I think there's some metaphors here of what would actually happen to Harry Kim if he was dumped into an alien jail. And
This is obviously the PG-13 version of what would happen in an alien prison, where, as we will find out, everyone is being fucked with, getting a little mind fucky. And their aggression responses are super hyped up. And just to show where we're at with this, like right off the bat, that moment of relief of seeing Tom on Harry's face immediately is wiped away when Tom just wallops him and sends him to the dirt. And that's when they cut to the credits. That Tom is also gang jumping Harry Kim into the prison. So where the fuck is going on? Shit is already very real for Harry and Tom, and we're gonna be having an awesome little adventure with these two.
a dirty, sweaty, crazy adventure, to say the least.
You know, we've had a lot of opportunities to have Tom and Harry time. We had an old episode that was supposed to really show how good friends they were, that ended up not serving that at all when Harry got sent back into like a perfect version of parallel universe version of his life. This actually does so much for these two actors that are really fucking good in this episode. Like, their acting skills are way above par of what I've been expecting out of them lately.
Absolutely.
When you look at this and you look at like the last, real Tom Paris focused episode that we watched, which was really Threshold, think about how flat, boring, and uninteresting he was in that.
Who?
And then think about this episode.
Wait, who was?
That Tom Paris, that Robert Duncan McNeil, like...
I stand by Threshold. I think that there were certainly scenes that, Robert wasn't feeling, and then, like, the, oh, I'm dying, woe is me, versus the, I've just seen infinity, and now I'm crazy. So it was a peaks and valley episode of that, but I would say that they consistently, both in this episode, perform very strong. Before we get any deeper into this episode, you've got some pretty good names behind it. You got Les Landau doing the direction on this, who gave us Time and Again, and I would say has adequately redeemed himself. But you got Alliances, Heroes, and Demons, Prime Factors, which was one of my favorites. And then you got Kenneth Biller writing it. And I would say this is certainly a strong point for Kenneth Biller, who also gave us Elogium, but also did Tuvix, and he's got some pretty cool ones in here. So I would say this is
Tuvix. Come on, man. Those enraging 11 minutes that we will ever have watching the show.
Engaging 11 minutes.
Well, I will say this episode is highly engaging, and
it's much better than Juggernaut, which was another low point for him. So I think this is a good chance for a lot of people involved in this to get some redemption points.
Yeah, they really went for it. We cut back to the prison where Tom reveals that the backstory kind of in pieces. He basically, I don't know how else to put this, so I'm going to say it exactly the way that I was thinking when I watched it. He claims Harry as his prison bitch.
Yes.
That's how it happens. He claims Harry as his prison bitch by saying, oh, we did this bombing that killed 47 dudes, and he snitched, so he's mine now. Back off. And when kind of the head thug of the prison that's got the biggest gang tries to say, no, he's going to be my prison bitch, Tom, who knows how to jail, already has his knife. He's already got his prison shank. He throws that shit up to his neck and says, nah, I'm taking this one. So if Harry's got to be stuck in jail with somebody, at least he's stuck in jail with the one guy on Voyager that knows what he's doing in prison.
We find out a little bit later on that Tom's actually been down there for 3 days, and you got to think about this as like one of these survival type games like Rust or Conan Exiles or Fallout 76. Like, he's had 3 days to like build his base camp and start getting equipment. Him popping a prison shank that quickly and seemingly out of nowhere. We used to work with a guy. Should I tell this story? We used to work with a guy, and I won't say what his name is, but his nickname was Keister Shank. And I don't know where Tom pulls this knife out of, but it seems like a real handy prison pocket. And he's clearly seen his way around a shank before.
He has.
There's
Yeah.
there's a lot of stabbing. There's a gratuitous amount of people getting stabbed in this.
Tom carries Harry away from the beatdown room, and we get an explanation by way of them catching up with each other what happened, which is that they were on a planet. There was some kind of terrorist attack. They got blamed for it for whatever reason, and whatever planet justice system they're dealing with basically just decided to say the other one ratted them out, even neither of them did, and throw them in prison for the terrorist bombing because.
How did you not just hit the dun 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 button? This might seem familiar to some of you out there. And it's for a good reason. Tom Goes to Jail is quickly becoming a Voyager staple.
It's true.
I'd like for the moment to recount how many times Tom, if not Tom and Harry Kim, have collectively gone to jail. We will start with the adventure on the Shitheads planet.
Of course.
When the Vidians captured him and put him in that labor camp in Faces.
Yep.
We can kind of count Harry caught in Juggalo Tech.
True.
We've got... No, I guess Kim doesn't actually have a chance to go to jail in Non Sequitur, but had they been caught, they would have ended up there as well.
Correct.
What else we got?
We got the fact that Tom was relieved of duty and put on like house arrest, and then eventually was imprisoned by the Kazon as all part of the deception of season 2.
A good coin, and that was of course featuring the Queen of Burns herself.
Correct.
We have Tom's initial stint in the Pokey in Caretaker.
Correct.
This guy's been around the block, and when you're saying he knows how to jail, he has put skill points into the jail wisdom subcategory.
Yes, he has. He has.
He goes through these first 3 days there. I can only assume like someone who has played, the first stages of a video game on PlayStation before they were able to afford a save card, and he knows him by heart. So like you said, Harry's in real good hands right here.
They also remark on the fact that they have these neural implants in their heads that they call the clamp that is forcing aggression responses in everyone down there. And that comes into major effect as the episode goes on. But they establish their existence and that they both are realizing that they're being affected by it. And essentially, the way the effect is described is that it continuously raises their anxiety and aggression response mechanisms towards everything. And what happens after we get this little backstory is that the food gets delivered, which is where an alarm goes off and a bunch of nutrient bars kind of get shoved down the chute, and suddenly all the prisoners are going for bars. Tom and Harry get there a little late to be able to get food, but they are there for enough time to see somebody who had grabbed a bar be lifted up by his hair and then have his throat cut, from ear to ear by a guy I will come to call as Hobo Monk, and just dropped unceremoniously into the middle and his food taken.
I called that guy Prison Jesus. And the fun part the fun part in this episode is when Harry and Paris go up to the guy who just has his throat slit, and they check his pulse only to then decide that he's dead.
Like, I'm sorry, what's his throat being cut right in front of you not obvious? And I think we finally have our episode title. It's Shankin' with Prison Jesus. It's got to be it.
Let's see what other rocks we can cover here. I think we got a few more gems to go.
Yeah, I mean, that is as brutal a fucking murder on screen as you'll ever see in Star Trek. Here's a guy's throat being cut right here on camera. No fucking question about what's happening here.
Is
Just
it because they're
cold-blooded.
aliens that they can get away with kind of like gratuitous violence like this?
I don't know. That was really like I was surprised when I saw that scene. I didn't remember that specific scene happening.
Were you, was it a conversation with you where you were talking about in Star Trek 6, Klingons have pink blood so that they could dodge the R rating?
Correct.
Yeah, maybe like if it's not really a human, there's like some standards and practice hoops you can duck. But regardless, you are now in a fully fledged knife fight murder prison. And this is the second time that Tom and Harry have ended up in a mutual thing like this. And I want to take a step back, and we don't really have full explanation yet of exactly what happened here. But there's enough stuff on the board to really start drawing some conclusions. And I got to go back to Janeway's lack of competence as a leader. Like, how many times? And yeah, it's a TV show, and you need plots and stuff like this. But like, how many times your dude's going to get scooped up into this kind? Oh, I'm sorry. Then we also had the episode where it might have been Tom, but the B'Elanna and Tuvok get imprisoned during New Jack Neelix's
Oh yeah. That
drug
didn't
engine
involve
deal.
Tom though. Tom did the jailbreak though. They sent Tom in to break people out of that prison, so he
But
was involved.
the crew of Voyager is frequently imprisoned, and I don't know if this was I think he says this was a shore leave gone wrong, but like, man, maybe you guys just need to start finding uninhabited planets and doing like picnics in the grass, because these aliens just love throwing your dudes in space jail without any real due process here.
The Delta Quadrant needs judicial reform. That's the
Yeah,
big takeaway.
I know the other big takeaway is too, oh, there you got stranded crew members who don't know where their dudes are. Gee, if only they're those subdermal communicators.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've well established that that absolutely should exist. It just doesn't because it would take too many plot ideas away.
I mean, you've got Harry Kim who can make super strong force field generators to reinforce the hull, but it doesn't dawn on him. Like, hey, before we go get accused false of murder, maybe we swallow this pill first. But so yeah, they've got these nasty protein bars that are getting dumped down this toilet chute, and it's just a limited resource area. You don't really see any talk about water. It looks like dudes are just pooping in the corners. The whole thing is a real. I guess the question will come up later on, like, why bother with this prison? We'll find out that people who are sentenced to this prison never get to leave, no matter what. That they just seem to be added down there willy-nilly. And the question that kind of follows me through is, if you're paying upkeep on this thing, why not just shoot prisoners in the head and be done with it? I mean, if they're just down there murdering each other like animals anyways, like, what's the point?
We finally cut to Voyager after this, after the fucking throat gets cut. And I will say Janeway is batting above her average in this episode of being a good captain and giving zero fucks. She's getting pretty impatient with this planet because all she knows is that Paris and Kim are missing, and she's afraid that they might have died in the terrorist bombing. But eventually, your stock smarmy, planet ambassador that always gets dispatched to talk to Voyager summons her up on the view screen and says, "Yeah, so they totally did the bombing, and they're in prison now." And Stevie was watching this with me, and she's like, "Well, this is what happens when your next door score is too low." Because they're super suspicious of Voyager because they're off-worlders, and it happens that their ship is powered by dilithium, and it was trilithium explosives that were used, which can be refined from dilithium. So obviously they did it, and they make a half-hearted attempt to like impound and arrest Voyager, and they just go away.
Yeah, man. Technobabble in this episode is all about that lithium, baby. Trilithium, dilithium, monodicycle lithium, like
paralithium.
paralithium. It's easy to check out on it, but that's what the accusation boils down to. And I'm going to do you one better than next door for this one. I think the Delta Quadrant may quickly be approaching the Chinese national security social standing scorecard Olympic. Like,
Yeah, Voyager's social credit is low due to their constant fucking with everyone they meet.
Yeah.
You know, who the fuck would want this goddamn ship of Harbinger of Doom showing up at their doorstep? Like, no, we heard what you did. Just go, just get the fuck out of here.
But I'll agree with you. Janeway, aside from the nonsense of continuing to let people go down on these planets where they don't understand how the law works and that it's dangerous, terrible, societies that are just going to endanger their people, she's real on top of her game. So this dude shuts her down and says, nope, they've already been processed. That's that. And she gets a Scooby squad together to say, all right, well, we know that the bombing happened. And in a rare turn for the Voyager crew, instead of just breaking him out of space jail as the first go-to, let's solve this mystery for the locals. And she gets her science team on figuring out where could these, was it trilithium?
Yeah, so they narrowed down using their sensor logs that there were some ships that were powered by paralithium, which is another substance that could be turned into trilithium, and that there were a few ships in the area that could have potentially been the source of the explosives as a consequence. And they're going to go on a terrorist hunt, essentially, going to go find these ships and find out if they were the ones that created the explosives or not. Assuming that if they find the one that did it, they found the terrorists, and they can go from there.
I know it's nitpicky, but one of the things I do want to look at in the prison. So Tom and Harry don't have their comm badges, right?
Correct.
There's perfect English going on here. And, right after Basics 2, where the crew got their comm badges pulled and they couldn't communicate with the cave people who very clearly had a spoken language, like, and again, I know it's petty, but it's like the way they pick and choose, like, where is the universal translator? When does it apply? When is its absence a plot point? And when do we just look past all of that? So, we have drama in whatever scene we're creating. It starts getting a little tired after a while.
The drama was good enough that I didn't care. Like when the episode's good and those kinds of details aren't impacting what's going on, I tend to forget. Like, it didn't even occur to me that was weird. I'm like, I'm too into what's happening here for that to matter to me.
I think normally I would look past it as well. It's just the fact that language was such a major barrier in Basics 2 that it refreshed my gripe.
I think that's like the key difference between you and I, is that I tend not to hold on to that stuff unless it's clear the episode's logic falls apart. And I could here's my, a quick off the cuff explanation. There's a translation field in the space station, because as we're going to find out from Prison Jesus, this is a sociological experiment on the part of this alien race to stick prisoners in these situations and see how they turn on each other. And therefore, it's in their interest for them to be able to communicate so they can see where it is that their levels of communication still break down because of the implant that they've put in them.
So let's talk about Prison Jesus while we're at it. This guy, our first introduction, as you said, was during the botched feeding where he kills a dude and steals his protein bars. This guy, I think he kind of looks like the sheriff from True Blood.
Okay, yeah.
More Jesus-y in a prison setting.
Yes.
Dude's got a real smooth voice. Good presentation. He's really got some good cult leader stuff going on. And we find out that this guy has been here for a very long time. And this is an environment where people do not last long. So he is old, and it's for a reason, and it's because he's a badass. And the other scumbags have kind of learned to keep a distance from this guy because he's crazy, he's handy with a knife, and if you leave him alone, by and large, he'll leave you alone, assuming you don't have his energy bars.
Yeah, and we get a more of an introduction to him because Harry's been working on essentially a little jury-rigged device using a pipe and some wiring to try and short out the force field that's over the chute, because their idea now is the only way we're going to escape is through this chute. It has a force field on it. I'm going to use my handy-dandy Federation engineering skills to use these, stone knives and bear skins to short it out so that we can climb up the chute. And they're working on it and dealing with their mind getting fucked with, and Tom is trying really hard to keep Harry focused. He's like talking about food a lot with him. He is,
which amazingly, not a single mention of tomato soup or any soup. Because they're going through every food they love. And if you remember back in Caretaker, yeah, that was like Tom's big thing, was that the replicator couldn't make good tomato soup. But I know it's an odd one, but we've had such prevalence of soup that it was really amazing that they go through like prime rib and cherry pie, but no mention.
Tom names all red meat, and Harry's like, oh, what about some shrimp? And he's like, no, more red meat. T-bones, goddammit. So, Tom is like we said, he knows how to jail. He's trying to protect him. He's trying to, assert dominance, that sort of thing. And eventually, like, King Hobo and his homies come by as Harry's working on this device, and it's not working out quite well yet. And eventually, King Hobo's had enough of Tom, and they get into a knife fight. And Tom wins the knife fight against King Hobo. They bust their shanks out, and he lays down those classic Star Trek right-left crosses and has the advantage on this guy. But then one of his homies just basically violates the rules of Star Trek fights and just stabs him. Just in the side. Just like walks up to the guy and stabs Tom right in the fucking gut. And it's a bad stab move. They pan down, and it's this nasty fucking prison shank. And there's all this blood, and it's like right in his side. It's like Tom is in trouble. He is seriously fucked up by this prison shank. And that's when Harry breaks out of his grasp that he's in from the gang. It starts swinging his pipe around like a crazed lunatic. Looking
like a what? Started swinging his pipe around like a what?
A crazed lunatic?
Like a lawn suitor?
Like a lawn suitor. I mean, he's got the issue, the pipe. I mean, that's the thing. These Federation officers, they get their hands on these pipes, and they're murder machines.
A knife is a little bit too much murder. It's too much intent. But you switch over to those bashing weapons, and it's like, hey, I wasn't trying to kill anybody, but if you died, well, so be it. Yeah, man, this whole episode, I couldn't shake the thought, like, God, what if Lon didn't die, and instead of it being Paris or Kim down there, you had Lon Suder in this environment? Lon, the pacifist, pushed against his limits again. Like, what a good ongoing plot for this guy.
Yeah, like, could you imagine, like, okay, so Basics 2 ends, Lon survives and successfully gets the ship back. He gets forgiven as a consequence. So, like, all right, Lon, you've proven, like, the murder that you did has got to be in the past. You're a valuable member of the crew. We're reinstating you, right? Everyone owes you their lives now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And here we are 2 episodes later. And imagine if it's Lon and Harry that get stuck in this prison.
Imagine it's Harry that just got stabbed, and Lon knows he has to take action again, and he sees the pipe laying there on the ground. He sees the pipe laying there, and it starts playing that music as he's just glaring at it.
It's like, the feelings, they're returning. Oh no. And then everyone fucking dies. He just murders everyone.
Damn you, Jerry, for taking this excellent potential future away from us.
Oh God, that would have been so awesome. Like the re-emergence of Murder Lon. They finally come to rescue, and everyone's dead except for Lon and Harry. They all show up like the fucking gang squad that they do, and it's just bodies everywhere. And it's just him with a pipe just crusted in blood. Like, oh, hello, Captain.
Harry thought that the key to figuring out this force field was the pipe. He was half right. It wasn't using the pipe to short circuit it. It was using the pipe to kill everybody so we could drain the force field's battery with all these bodies we just threw into it.
Well,
and it should be mentioned too, like, they don't know where the hell they're at. They're in, like you said, some nasty looking factory. Rumor has it that this thing's like, 300 meters below the surface?
Correct.
And that they're in some subterranean prison. But there's no windows, there's no night, there's no day. It's just sometimes the hole opens up and dumps food. Sometimes the hole opens up and, dumps fresh fish prisoners.
So this is when they go to get Prison Jesus' help. Tom's all fucked up. They go back to where their hovel, and a bunch of other people have taken it. And without any other options, they go to Prison Jesus and say, listen, Harry's like, I'll give you whatever you want. I just need bandages and water and food and a place for him to rest. And eventually the barter that they come to is that Harry's going to help Prison Jesus escape with them using his short-circuiting pipe. And Prison Jesus allows the help to be rendered, but makes clear that he will murder both of them if Harry's lying. So, the stakes are still high, but there's a momentary respite here. And meanwhile, Voyager has had some success in their terrorist hunt. They have found a ship that has the sensor readings that suggest they could be responsible for the bombing. And fortunately for Voyager, the two people on the ship act guilty as fuck from the very beginning.
Fastest terrorist confession I have ever seen. Like, they fall apart under questioning faster than Lon does when Tuvok finally confronts him with the evidence about the space pipe murder.
Yeah, Tuvok, I mean, Lon tried to lie at first and then got found out. These guys don't even try to lie. They're like, okay, we did it.
So they board this ship, and they bring over the two crew members, and it's a dude and his 14-year-old sister. And Janeway's talking to him about, like, I know that there's some political unrest on your planet. And she's like, the government is corrupt in the open sky, what you call a terrorist network. They're freedom fighters that will free us for tomorrow and instill the true government. It's like, well, hey, Tuvok, call the kids back over because I think we got a winner here.
Yeah, she shows no sympathy for them. They're like talking about all these geopolitical problems and how terrible it is. And she's like, I don't care. I'm taking you back so that I can get my people, and you're going to go to jail. And that's what's up. But hey, you can get a shower and a meal while you're here.
This was the hard part of the episode for me to watch, Janeway. Like, it's all cool and stuff while she's beating the trail trying to find where these real terrorists are. But once they capture it, and you see this guy's 14-year-old sister's involved, I think it starts throwing out some moral hard pills. Because Janeway, the dude's like, hey, look, you can't take us back. That prison where your friends are, that's where we find out you don't get out. Like, there's no getting out of that thing. And she's a 14-year-old girl, and Janeway just gives no shits about any of it. And it makes me start wondering, like, all right, now, you're getting involved in, like, local politics. And I feel like there's some Prime Directive stuff going on that's getting ignored, as well as, like I said, a 14-year-old girl to prison, like some real heavy ethics.
I would say that the episode, if it's missing anything, is a moment of reflection on Janeway's part.
Yeah.
Confronting that. I think that's still her no nonsense. Listen, I'm not getting involved. I'm just going to give them the people that they're looking for so I can get my people back and get the fuck out of the situation, is a totally good call on her part. But some moment of her to reflect of, like, with Chute of, like, man, this is getting real uncomfortable. Like, I just want to get this over with, because if I have to think about this too hard, I'm not liking the fact I'm going to turn this 14-year-old girl over to unknown fate.
Yeah, I can't see past it. And, ultimately we'll find out that the government doesn't care and they go for a jail bust anyways. But it's like, I think this cast Janeway in a real bad position. It would have been the right time here to be like, if it's between sending a little kid to jail or us just doing what we've done the entire time we've been in the Delta Quadrant, and that's have our way anyways, local politics be damned. Let's just cut the song and dance off and get the prison break rolling. But
some reflection on the part of Janeway as to why they have to do this, if there's some rationale, that would be one thing. Of like, hey, we're trying to not get involved in everyone's shit anymore and make any more enemies. Like something as simple as that. Of like,
yeah,
we gotta stop pissing everyone off. And that means I'm gonna go and play by these people's rules so that I don't have another fucking enemy on my trail, right?
But man, she's got to see at this point that it's a corrupt government. Like, the lack of due process. Like, they've dealt with these people, not these exact aliens, but they've dealt with this situation before. And I don't know, man. I think that maybe there's some real credence to this open sky network. I mean, especially given the new Jack Neelix episode where you see like these authoritarian governments, like she was part of a resistance. Like she's got no sympathy. And again, you jump back to what was the episode name where she's thinks the guy thinks it hits her daughter.
Oh, I know which one you're talking about. I think it's called Resistance.
I mean, she was part of a resistance movement. She's got real front row seats for this kind of shit. And again, it's a continuity issue always with Voyager, but this would have been a great time to sit down for some callback and be like, let's rethink our strategy on this. But they don't.
It was missing some kind of beat there, but quite frankly, I appreciate that they don't spend a lot of time with Voyager or what they're doing, and they spend as much time as they can with Tom and Harry, because the shit that happens from this point forward is fucking intense.
Yeah, so Tom's got this terrible stab wound, and unfortunately for him, the only medical professional is a hologram and a space elf, and then him. And Harry Kim, who is an intelligent person, has never really gone through any first aid training. So the medical regimen here is Tom is going to lay in a steel box with bed bugs and some rags jammed into his knife wound, and just let that infection go apeshit. So we got to suspend disbelief for a little bit that Tom just doesn't bleed out within the hour, and he starts making it what appears to be 2, maybe 3 days.
The passage of time is a little unclear as exactly how long they're there, but from this point, we get a lot of Harry kind of on his own, because now his protector and guide in prison, the character you'd expect to sort of be the Rock and be able to get them through it, is fucking not only just out of commission,
A liability.
he becomes a liability. He gets delirious. He starts accusing Harry of being the person who stabs him. Eventually they get into a fight, and it's really intense. How like Tom goes from strong to weak to even like kind of crazy. And the point where it really shows is early on after he gets stabbed. He's like, yo, Harry, if it gets to a point where you got to get out of here, get out of here. Do not worry about me. Like, you take care of yourself. Like, he's being strong Tom, right? He's being the character we associate with him. Like, I don't want you to sacrifice yourself for me. And then as his condition deteriorates, he gets really worried that Harry's going to leave him there. And he even says it like, Harry, don't leave me here. He's scared. And it's so effective and unexpectedly deep. I started the episode by talking about how good these actors are in this episode. This is where it starts to hinge. Because now Tom's weak. Harry needs to protect him while trying to escape, while also dealing with the fact that he's also going crazy from the mental implants.
And Space Jesus wants his.
Yeah, Space Jesus wants to get out, and also starts to see in Harry a kind of acolyte of somebody that could like be one of his disciples of the way, because Space Jesus has sort of channeled the crazy implant in a way that allows him to maintain a level of control that no one else seems to have.
He's got a murderous zen about him.
It is, yeah. That's why I was like going with Garbage Monk. It's very zen. It's very like, and he's even in like a meditative pose at one point with his manifesto talking about it.
Yeah,
he's managed to channel it in a weird way that he is capable of focusing his violence very specifically without being out of control. And
a Golconda of sorts.
Yeah, man, we love sneaking in those vampire references. This is
perfect clarity.
That's deep. And
I want to jump back into Robert before we go any further. Looking at Threshold and what you're talking about with Tom going like hot and cold, pathetic to villainous, like it's a real throwback to Threshold when he's got like his head pulsing. He plays that pity card on Janeway, like, please, I'm scared, and then lunges at her. And I think that's really where Robert Duncan McNeil shines as an actor, as someone who is able to just flip that switch on and off like a light switch, and to do so seamlessly and to do so with great impact as he does it.
And Garrett Wang is good in this too, because he starts to really get troubled with what's going on to him and his reactions to things. It's probably the best performance he's had in the entire show, in my opinion.
I have to imagine that set was very full immersion. It had to be hot, it had to be stinky, and I think it must have been easy to find the characters in the right headspace while you're recording that stuff.
It felt like it. It felt like he wasn't reaching. It felt like he kind of got there somewhat naturally, and it felt good watching it like he was there. Harry manages to short circuit the Chute force field and get up it, but the big reveal that kind of got spoiled in the scene before when they got the terrorists is that they're not underground, they're in a space station. And there is no real way out because clearly what's happening is some kind of supply ship or troop ship is coming in with prisoners or food, docking, shoving their shit down the chute, and then bouncing. And so suddenly their escape options become very, very limited and unrealistic.
I find space prisons very... I mean, it's a strong, depressing, disheartening situation. Like the ultimate Alcatraz, right? You don't have to swim through a cold body of water. It's like, what do? You know, you are just fucked every way you look at it. I do like when he finally short circuits the kill field that's around the chute. There's this moment he's like, all right, I think I did it. And he looks at Space Jesus. He's like, hey, guy who's been threatening to kill me and my friend and steal our boots, like, go ahead and touch it. Coast is clear. And Space Jesus is just like, forgets all of his jail knowledge. Is just like, oh, yeah, okay. And they force that door open. I want to point out the real flaw in this prison, though. That's a real narrow tube. There must not be any overweight people on this planet that commit crimes. I don't think they're going to fit down that little slide, man. I think they just get jammed up in there.
Well, you know, we don't see a lot of space fatties. You know, like in the 24th century, even in the Delta Quadrant, everyone's got good nutrition.
Mm.
Yeah, but this starts to weigh on Kim. They're stuck in an even worse situation than they thought. Then he starts to deal with Paris starting to not recognize him as Harry really. You know, he gets the pipe and starts to struggle with Harry with it, and then remembers, and that's when he begs him not to leave him there. And later on, he comes back to help him out even further, right? He's trying to rally the other prisoners to, hey, let's go up the chute because we can take over the ship. And Prison Jesus is like, that's stupid. They beat him up and throw shit at him.
There's a reason why Harry does not have burgundy on that uniform. This dude cannot give a motivational, rousing speech to literally save his life. And yeah, when like the main bad guy throws that wrench at his head and just busts him, all I could think was that dodgeball when Rip Torn you can dodge a monkey wrench, you can dodge a ball.
Yes. Well, he doesn't dodge the wrench and therefore would not make the average Joe's, but he goes back again to the shelter and sees Paris taking apart the jury-rigged pipe, and that sets him off. And there's this great scene where Kim fights his crippled, bleeding to death best friend and almost murders him right then and there by braining him Lon Suder style with the pipe.
Yeah. And that's like, I think Tom snaps out of it at some point. And, you know, to Tom's credit, he has been having a rough day. He has not eaten. He has been stabbed, and he does have a thing clamped to his scalp that is actively making him crazy. And he's probably got like sepsis or something terrible.
Yeah.
There's a lot of sympathy there. But Tom's like, he's like, what's happening to me? And I thought it would have been real cheeky if, you know, Kim would have been like, well, look, Tom, you know what? You're not becoming a future catfish. So remember, man, it can always be worse.
It's good. This could go downhill from here. Yeah. Don't tempt us.
Your lungs aren't melting and you're not trying to abduct a captain to go have illegitimate. Man, how good it would have been if their catfish babies would have found them, sprung them out of the pokey.
We're getting you out.
Dad, come on, get up the chute. Like, what is that fish saying? I can't understand a damn thing.
They cut to Prison Jesus trying to convince Harry to kill Tom and sort of take that step into being his acolyte.
His Sith apprentice.
Yes. And he gives him just this gnarly looking Gurkha knife prison shank. And the music in this episode is really good too. They use the music to good effect to like highlight some of the camera shots. You know, a lot of the shooting in the way that they shoot Harry as he's trying to like rally everybody and walk around. It's kind of disorienting. You see all the chaos in the background as it's happening. The music and the camera work is particularly well done to emphasize the growing insanity and pressure that Harry's feeling. And he puts this knife in his hand, and again, I for the very first time I could say Garrett Wang's acting in the scene, his nonverbals are so good because you can see him seriously considering taking that knife and murdering Tom. There's a part of him that wants to do it so much, and he is actively fighting it off to eventually tell Prison Jesus to go fuck himself and drop the knife and not do it.
So meanwhile, back up on the ship, they bring this terrorist ship in their cargo hold over. They've got the captain and his 14-year-old sister, and she gets the authoritarian government up on the phone and says, hey, look, I actually found the guys who were responsible for providing the bomb materials. Here, take them, just give us our dudes back. And he's like, no. Like we said, it's a life sentence. There's no takebacks, and your dudes are ours, and fuck you, we don't care. And now Janeway, kind of after the fact realizes like, oh, hey, we are actually dealing with shitbags. And now her position's weak. So she has to go back to these guys, the terrorists, and like, how about we do this? How about you tell me where that prison is, and I'll let you go. And the dude calls her out, and he's like, oh, let me guess, the government doesn't care about actual justice, and now you're hosed. So he tries to play some hardball with her and says, I'll take you where it's at, but there's some open sky people in this prison. I want to get them out too. And then Janeway just like forgets the fact she's dealing with a shitty government. It's like, no, you don't understand how this works. You take us there, I get my people out, and then we just let you go. And he ultimately agrees to that. But I don't know, man. I still feel like she's complicit with a corrupt government that's being demonstrated to her in like real time.
It's missing a scene of her saying, I am not going to make these people my enemy. Like as much as possible, I'm not going to get involved in their shit.
Yeah.
Same as before. Like some kind of establishment between her and Chakotay of we have to be careful because we're finally beyond the Kazon space or whatever. We're starting fresh with this new batch of Delta Quadrant aliens in this part of space. We gotta not go fuck with everyone that we meet. So I'm not gonna like start a general insurrection against the government by freeing all the terrorists in prison. I'm just gonna get my people and I'm going to leave, and I'll let these two jamokes go. I get why they want to do that, but they don't express actually in the story a rationale for it.
Right. So they come up with a pretty clever plan because the government is looking for Voyager at this point, expecting some nonsense. And they use Voyager as a decoy. Meanwhile, they tap Neelix's ship, which has been sitting in the shuttle bay for 3 seasons now, and say, we're going to send that in this Talaxian scout ship, and he'll do some space cat buffoonery, upload some cheese into their system, and before you know it, we'll have our guys back. So Neelix's ship heads out with the security detachment. Chakotay stays with the ship, and Janeway, knowing how to jailbreak, goes along with them.
I love the way they set that scene. The rest of the prisoners have turned on Harry, and Tom's looking bad. Like that sepsis is real. They've got some makeup on him. He's got the darkened eyes. He looks like he's pretty close to death. But Harry Kim has established a firm Bruce Lee style stance. He's got that pipe. He's ready.
What's left of the pipe? Did we mention that Tom completely destroyed this thing?
Yeah, he like took it apart, and that's what really set Harry off. And their confrontation where he almost killed him. But he's got those remains of the pipe. He's got that battle stance, and he says like, this guy's my friend. Nobody touches him. I will fuck you up. I'm a Starfleet officer with a pipe. You have no idea what you're about to unleash on yourself.
Yeah, Harry's asking himself at this point, WWSSD. What would Solid Suder do?
He would kick an ass or two. That's what Solid Suder would do.
Absolutely. And really what you're seeing here is Tom's going to die. One way or the other, Tom's going to die, whether it's the prisoners killing him or time doing him in. Harry's got no option. The one way that they had to get out of this place has been destroyed by Tom. And even if they could get out there, he would have to unite the entire prison to jump a guard ship when it docked. And, Harry could back off and live out his time in the prison under Prison Jesus's tutelage and protection. But he has made a decision at this point that he is going to go down with the Tom ship. He's going to go down swinging, and that's just how it's going to be. And luckily for him, at this exact moment, a certain space cat is docking to prison colony.
And the new prisoner alarm goes off, and the prisoner that comes down is Janeway with a phaser rifle, who immediately stuns like 6 guys on a wide dispersal beam. And immediately after Janeway comes Tuvok and a couple other guys. First of all, it was cool, and I like that they used the wide dispersal beam, and it's it's like this forked phaser rifle thing.
This is a phaser rifle I have never seen before. This phaser rifle looks like a toy that's like 3 pieces. It's 3 different guns, and you can like lock all the guns together to make Voltron
it looks
gun.
Like a Power Rangers super gun. Like they would lock the weapons together in Power Rangers. It looks like that.
This rifle is bigger than Janeway's. It might as well be a bazooka. And keep in mind, like the regular hand phasers, they're essentially weapons of mass destruction. Like there's nothing that like a hand phaser can't do, assuming you're not dealing with Borg shields. The fact she brings down this fuck you gun is specifically that. Like she is in the mood to tell a lot of people fuck you. And it's a level of fuck you that like the regular hand phaser just can't convey. So her coming down in this puff of smoke like a gangster, like Elliot Ness kicking in the door with a Tommy gun, standing over a crippled Tom and a sweaty Kim. It's a real cool girl power moment, I think.
It is. It typifies Janeway's not giving a fuck attitude. Like, no, security chief. I'm going down first with the goddamn phaser bazooka, and I'm getting the shit done.
The last time I had to pull a jailbreak, I didn't even have a baseball bat. This time I'm coming in ready. You know what would have been cool?
Last time I had to take a guard aside and act like I was going to suck his alien dick in order to get the advantage. I'm fucking shooting some people this time.
Last time I had to do a prison break, I had to misrepresent an entire Voyager episode on a TV stinger. How cool would it have been if there was finally a moment of realization that, again, she's dealing with a corrupt government, that she had to, free people who were unjustly prisoned, and she would have taken that necklace that her dad gave her and put that on as kind of like a Rambo moment before going down in there.
And there was opportunity maybe for some character development for Janeway, but I appreciate that instead of taking that time, they gave us way more with Tom and Harry. When you think about it, like all of the detail that they built into this, like, again, if you're listening to this, go watch it. It's hard to convey it. You have to see it. That they all the detail that they build into those scenes and the whole prison atmosphere, the Mad Max prison atmosphere, is great. And anything else they could have done would have taken away from that. I prefer they didn't. I like that they kept the focus on Tom and Harry. And sure enough, they roll in like you said, Elliot Ness and the Untouchables. They grab Harry and Tom. They get them back onto Neelix's ship while Neelix does space cat buffoonery, as you put, to try and delay the locals, and does some fancy maneuvering of some like Millennium Falcon getting close to the asteroid to lose the TIE fighters shit, and gets away clean. And they wrap the episode back on Voyager.
Well, yes. So they get on there for a real nice, tap of the homeostasis reset button. What would have been life-threatening sepsis, miserable death on the penal colony, the doctor has, cleaned up lickety-split. And you've got Janeway and Kim and Paris and the doctor, and I think Tess might be in there too. As they kind of
she had a line in there,
wrap things up about how good it is to be home, and they take off down the aisleway, and Tom's right back in to talk about what are they going to eat, because they've been starved nearly to death. And Harry stops mid-stride with like this guilty look on his face, and he's like, Tom, it can't just go back to being normal, man. Like I almost killed you. we can't look past the fact that like shit, we just went through some really bad shit, and I almost just stabbed you to save myself because I was so mad and so crazy.
I love the line. I love Tom's whole attitude about it, where he says, "You know what I remember? I remember someone saying, 'This man is my friend. Nobody touches him.' And I'm going to remember that for a long time." Like, it was a perfect note for their friendship. It was a perfect Tom note because, like, he's been through shit. He knows how to cope with what happened, and that is, gotta move on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Gotta move past it, can't dwell on it. This Harry's, this has never been through anything like this, so he's dwelling on it. And so he's trying to help his friend out and be like, "Listen, I know what you almost did, but let me remind you of what you did do. And then when push came to shove and the situation was hopeless, you were going to go down swinging for me, even though we were both going to die.
Yeah.
And I'm never going to forget that you did that." And that was beautiful. It was just a perfect ending. Like, I know that, things go back to normal in Star Trek. Voyager does it even worse than anyone else. This is a good note for them to be like, yeah, we went through some shit, but one thing's for certain is that you, in the end, you didn't give in to it, and that's what you should focus on.
And, Harry, this might seem like a really bad thing to you, like it couldn't get worse, but I went through Event Horizon, and let me tell you that on the total space insanity scale, this is actually pretty low down there. So let's just smile, nod, move past it, and go blow a week's worth of replicator rations.
You didn't kidnap the captain and have illegitimate space babies.
Nobody cut your face off and then came to me trying to be my friend and get in my pants. R.I.P. What the hell was his name?
What was that guy's name? Yeah, Doctor Face Guy from Faces, when they killed Durst and put Durst's face on Dr. Durst.
Dr. Nookie.
R.I.P. Durst.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, it's a good episode. It's a little Christmas gift maybe for Voyager from giving it to us after some poopy episodes. Giving us a real good one. Just solid performances.
How good would it have been, though, if Neelix, during his little traitor ruse, would have donned the new Jack Neelix coat? There's so much good legacy they could have brought into this episode, man. I'm telling you.
If only they could see the future of knowing what they left behind by not using the new Jack Neelix coat. Like,
so many good props. I think if Janeway would have looked, the necklace I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
I think if she would have looked at that necklace and just like, you know what? Fuck it. Get the rifles.
Yeah, it was almost like how Picard sometimes looked at the flute. You saw the flute come up every once in a while. I would have liked that continuity too. That would have been a great note. It wouldn't have been too jokey. It would have fit in with a very similar circumstance that she was in. But, I'm okay with the fact that this episode's good enough that I'm forgiving it. Let's put it that way.
Absolutely. I don't know if I would say this is like a top 5 episode for me, but it was certainly good. It was certainly engaging. There was no falling asleep in it like the Excelsior episode last week. And just very strong performances out of everybody. It was a very nice voyage outside of the Star Trek comfort zone.
I completely agree.
So coming up, season 3, episode 4, The Swarm. We got the Doctor, and Kes is pushing his hand away. Voyager is attacked by swarms of tiny spaceships. The Doctor is losing his memory, and Taurus activates a program run by a familiar hologram. What do you remember, Joe?
I remember this one. It's a Doctor-focused episode. It's I think something that we will enjoy watching and discussing. I'm not sure how compelling television it is, but there's some deep nerd shit that happens here that I think will be interesting for us to break into, and hopefully we'll find enough jokes.
I'm hoping
while doing so.
I'm hoping when they say swarms of tiny spaceships, like, you see a lot of people with different shit glued to their face. You don't really see little tiny races of, pixies the size of your thumb. I think it'd be pretty cool if there was just a planet of little dudes, and they got spaceships too, and those spaceships hurt.
There is again, we should watch Enterprise because that exists there.
Joe, in a long enough timeline, maybe, but I think that if we manage to survive our trip through Voyager, with our sanity intact, I think Deep Space Nine's the direction I want to go next.
I understand. I understand. Like after slogging through all of this, you'll need some kind of cookie.
Yeah.
Anyway, that does it for us here for V'ger Please. You can expect our next episode right after Christmas. Don't worry, we're not skipping a beat, and we'll see you next week.